Oh, go Populous. Wow, incredible. Cece, you did these?
No, she says no to everything. You know, she thinks my name is no. Cece, see what's wrong.
Hey, Cece, why didn't you draw another picture for us exactly like this one? Or at least wrap up the show, kiddos. Right? What else we can do?
So 14.
Yeah, because you need 3 on the bottom, 3 on the top, 4 on the side, 4 on the side. What's up, Andrew? Oh, you're muted. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, how are you?
Doing good. Doing good. There. Playing Minecraft.
I'm dead single.
It's okay, I still love you.
Oh, is that so? Oh, love you too, Hunter.
I just
Yeah,
can't
I don't
go
know
on
how
with
many
you
people are
tonight.
actually gonna like show up.
Yeah, it might be a little bit of a lower attendance one, but that's all right.
Should I start screen sharing the presentation stuff or what?
Yeah, however you guys have it set up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, hold on. Save this.
Probably get started like 308,
Yeah,
307.
hold on. PowerPoint's being really funky. All right, wait. What do you see now?
I see the PowerPoint.
Okay, I'm making sure.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, I use the formatting such and such that we had in the folder.
Yep.
It's all good. We got this. I have a key. Last week, Jim at home. That was on vacation. Hey, just fine. Thanks, guys.
Where should I build my portal?
I would go a layer deeper than your basement.
You going to the Nether?
Just trying to build a portal, yeah. Yeah, let's just give it to like 307, 308.
Yeah, it's really fine.
Hey, Sophia.
Oh, hey.
Hunter, you started the recording, right?
Yes, it's recording right now.
Okay. I mean, I'm fine if we start in like a minute or whatever. Is that okay?
Yeah, 307 or 308.
Alright. All right, it's 3:07, and I'm just going to go get started. Hi, everyone. I'm Andrew Winger. I'm the Vice President for Maryville Cyber Association, and today's presentation is going to be on the MITRE attack framework. And first off, what is MITRE? It's an attack framework developed in partnership with the U.S. government and multiple Fortune 100 and 500 companies, and it was created by a not-for-profit corporation, MITRE, obviously, and supporting several U.S. government agencies. And it started development in 2013 and then completed around May 2015. And at its completion, they rolled out this standard framework for how most cyber attacks happen and covers most of the bases for how they happen, how they're executed, the different techniques, tactics, and I'll go over that in a bit. All right, so essentially it's the adversarial tactics. Oh, this is what the what it stands for. So adversarial tactics, techniques, and common knowledge. And it was essentially created for when defenders lack a common vision for the threat landscape. So it was made to gather an overall picture of what everyone is dealing with when facing these malicious actors, cyber threats, etc., and sort of standardized a way of looking at it. All right, so there are three matrices overall, like ideas for the framework. So first off, enterprise attack, pre-attack, and the mobile attack. These are three different forms of it. So first off, enterprise attack, it has, I believe, 11 types and techniques, which I'll go over in a minute. And then for the pre-attack, it covers techniques pre-compromise. So like sort of the planning phase, like what happens before the attack takes place, like what needs to be set up, what measures need to be done before, to like what sort of hardware infrastructure, software, that sort of thing, what tools they kind of need to use before they actually start everything. Then for the mobile attack, it's more so with the mobile devices. So for example, a company laptop, phones on private networks, going to like coffee shops, more typical stuff that if you access like the company network information data on public Wi-Fi, stuff like that, where it's more out in sort of the wild, so to speak, like normal public outside of the infrastructure the company set up. All right, so why it exists? It was created to better document adversary behaviors within internal projects, classify how attackers interact with the systems, and it's based on real-time activity. So this is actually an ongoing development process. So even though it was released in 2015, they've still been updating and adding on to it as software and technology has sort of developed and improved since that time in those past 6 years. All right, so I mentioned the 11 tactics for the enterprise attack framework. So initial access, execution, persistence, privilege escalation, defense evasion, credential access, discovery, lateral movement, collection, exfiltration, and impact. And I'll go into each of those in a minute. And each of these is one of the categories of the tactics that malicious actors use during attacks and defenders use to kind of get in front of it. So for example, initial access would sort of cover every sort of measure and technique that would be used to get initially into the server. So there's, I don't remember how many there are, but there's about, I'll go into it in a minute. So yeah, so there's over 291 techniques, and those 291 each of those falls under one of the 11 tactics listed here. So it's based on contextual information, permissions, requirements, common platforms, detecting commands, and processes used. So these are the criteria that MITRE uses, or this framework uses to identify and sort of like tie values to each of these techniques. So when you go onto their website, or like when you're delving deeper into like using this framework to either get in front of attacks or run them in like a red team exercise or something like that, you would when you're kind of referring, it's like a reference guide. So when you're referring to each of these techniques, it provides you contextual information and all this other information, sort of like what was required to actually run this part of the attack. So for example, for like something like active scanning or gathering information for like a phishing attack or something like that. And then for the framework, so it describes the way adversaries implement a technique, or sorry, yeah. So it describes the way adversaries implement a technique. So essentially with that, each of these, well, you can find it on their website, obviously. And when you go into their the case studies examining each of the different problems. So it describes how the adversaries implement a technique, describes the software that they use to do that, the particular instance of use, understanding exactly how the technique is used, and how it can possibly be used for replication. So this is sort of the information provided under each of the 291 techniques used during cyber attacks. All right, for threat intelligence, it's mainly to help organizations and users and mainly the US government share threat intelligence, and analysts and defenders work together with data and compare and contrast it with each of the different threat groups, which I'll go into in a minute. And then it'll structure intelligence around this behavior. So this is used by defenders to the information gathered during these attacks and the aftermath using the framework, they can detect and mitigate and sort of like figure out what they can do better next time and work around what is the problem. All right, then for benefits, it's the all right, so it aids red teams and blue teams alike, which I sort of mentioned with the red team exercises. So it's adversarial emulation plans to test networks. So that means that sort of, as you all know, what a red team exercise is, but I'll go into it in a minute anyway. So it's sort of just like a simulation of running an attack against a network in a sort of controlled environment and actually separated from the actual network. And so then they can model the defenses off of the adversary behavior that was used in the red team attack as a possible like model for an actual attack. So the campaigns make it easier to track attacks, decipher patterns, and rate effectiveness. So this is the effectiveness of the defense mechanisms that the company or corporation would be actually using to mitigate against these attacks. And then for blue teams, it would be better understanding of what attackers are doing and mitigate threats and prioritize them. And then for the matrices, all right, hold on a second. Let me pull that up for a second. All right, can you guys see that? Oh, okay, I was just making sure. Okay, so hold on a sec. Yeah, so as you can see here, these are the 11 categories for constants: resource development, initial access, execution, and let me figure it out. Yeah, etc. Privilege escalation, defense, credential access, discovery, lateral movement, collection, etc. So each one of these, oh, I forgot to mention how they're kind of identified. So it's like T for threat, and then the number is the I believe it's the number that it was either identified or sort of like how it was discovered. So for this one, active scanning, then it lists the sub techniques, mitigations, detection. So for detection, it's sort of explaining how to mitigate against such an attack. And you guys can kind of go through this website, etc. So this is all the 291. If you kind of go down, this encompasses a majority of attacks and sort of the techniques used by attackers during them to used by attackers to get into networks, and sort of goes through. This is meant to encompass the whole process of the pre-planning, actually executing the attack, extracting the information, and then the post process afterwards. So this sort of goes through the each one of these 11 is a stage in that process. Obviously, at the end, there's exfiltration of data, and then the impact of that data, and begins with reconnaissance in the network, that sort of thing. So if you guys want to, I can sort of go through a few of these. Hold on a sec, guys. Okay, so if you guys want me to, I can go through a few of these for like a few minutes and sort of explain what some of them mean. If you guys can drop in the chat or just speak up, like which one would you want me to sort of go over out of these 291? And I'll also post the link for this in the chat. Hold on a second.
Let's start off with active scanning.
All right, yeah. There's the link if anyone else wants to go through it. Yeah, so active scanning. First of, oh, let me make sure I did that right. Yeah. Yeah. All right. First off, it's yeah, as you can see, as I said, it was the technique was sort of identified, created, and documented. If any of you guys are familiar with NIST, which is the standards for the information technology and security for the US and government, and corporate, and majority of other instances, this is sort of the nonprofit wanted to build a sort of simpler version of that without all of the because that's very not like contractual lawyer speaking, but it's like more specific and like actually spells out everything that you actually need versus this, which is sort of more general and you can kind of go through the different steps, whereas that is sort of like you have to identify and piece together yourself. So for the active scanning, which is what Hunter said, it's so before compromising a victim, a reconnaissance scans using something such as usually Nmap, Wireshark, or sort of intercepting their network traffic. And then it sort of doesn't involve sorry, involve direct interaction with anyone on the network. So that means you're sort of doing it externally without them sort of knowing. So running different scans like Metasploit sort of thing like that. And then reveals opportunities like open ports, what servers are running, how their network is configured, what are the vulnerabilities there. And it's sort of like the before process before you actually would go in. And so I'm just going to kind of examine, okay, for the sub techniques, this would be one of them, scanning the IP addresses. And then the other one would be something such as, yes, the vulnerability scanning. So running something such as Nessus or one of the other, Nessus, but there's a lot of other open source free tools that sort of accomplish the same thing. So the examining logs, packet capture, that sort of thing. So with examining the logs and packets, it would be see the information going in and out of the server, as well as the logs, which are sort of like how everything is interfacing along the network. All right, and then so that's obviously reconnaissance. So I'm just gonna go through all these if that's okay with everyone, just reconnaissance, all three of these 11, is that all right? It won't take. Okay. Yeah, so resource development, sort of gathering and acquiring all the information that you sort of need before you actually start the attack. So adversary established resources they can use to support operations, which I sort of explained with the infrastructure they kind of need and build up. And then purchasing, compromise, steal resources. So acquire hardware, software, obviously, yeah. And then also get email accounts through phishing scams, that sort of thing, or spoofing certificates, or gaining access to whoever prints theirs through their certificate authority and their digital signatures, sort of like either spoofing that or taking control in the middle, editing the data, that sort of thing. Yeah. And so it goes through all of the technique IDs. So it goes through all of this, and then this is very okay. And then initial access, when they sort of start getting into the network. So techniques use various entry vectors to gain initial foothold in the network. Techniques used to gain foothold includes targeted spear phishing, which I mentioned, and exploiting weaknesses on public facing servers. Footholds gained through initial access. Usually for hackers, they want to keep these open for as long as possible without the IT administration or cybersecurity team sort of like knowing that they're there, obviously. So it's sort of just like, hey, we're chilling on your line, we're just extracting information, yeah, without noticing, obviously. And then execution, actually starting the attack. So techniques result from running on a local or remote system. So this is sort of how the attack starts, whereas the other two are planning. And techniques run malicious code paired with techniques from other tactics to achieve broader goals. So information extraction, getting private information, data, financial records, anything like that. Yeah. And then, or running commands, PowerShell scripts, anything that sort of like gets them into it. And then next, persistence. So obviously they got in, they don't just want to immediately get booted out. So for persistence, they want to stay in there as long as possible, sort of just like just make sure that like they won't be detected, obviously. So it's sort of just like sticking in there. Okay, they use the rock climbing metaphor where it's like a foothold, so you kind of just want to stay there for as long as possible and sort of just like feel your way around of like how far you can stay there without being detected. And then for the privilege escalation, that's pretty self-explanatory. You want to either escalate yourself to something like an admin account or well, obviously, yeah, escalate yourself up to like admin privileges or network administrator or some account that actually has more permission than just like a standard user who you attack through like a spearfish or like specific information, got their credentials, that sort of thing. Yeah. And then obviously, yeah, so OS features that execute elevated content, which would be running those commands on a more elevated level and across the whole network. And then for defense evasion, sort of avoided being detected. So it's, if you think of like a bank heist where a film like that, where the main characters are sort of trying to avoid the police within like the vault or something like that, or trying to evade, run around while still being able to take everything. It's sort of like that, where it's uninstall, disable security software. So sort of like covering your tracks, making sure no one knows you were there, obviously. And then trusted process to hide and masquerade the malware. So this is actually pretty important with what happened with Solar. I'm sure you guys have heard of this, but the SolarWinds attack that happened within the past couple months or so, and actually over the past few years, as we sort of discovered, that these were kind of described as like they spoofed the timestamps and sort of disguised everything as either network processes, computer processes across standard, in the standard way that normal companies would document such a thing. Yeah. And then sort of cover the tracks and leave without being detected. And then credential access, this would have been steal account names, passwords, and based on that, see what they can do. And this covers stuff like brute forcing, password guessing, cracking, spraying, pulling from databases, and using something like using password software to sort of like get access to it. And then discovery would be kind of like piecing out how their network infrastructure is laid out with the servers, what ports they have open, stuff like that. Sort of how you would be able to maneuver around the network before you actually start doing that. So figure out like, oh, is there this person signs on at 3 p.m. every day and doesn't, and usually instead of checking this one server, he checks all these 3 servers, and then there's one is just kind of chilling over here and doesn't actually get updated or anything like that. You can exploit that. And then for lateral movement, obviously be moving. So once you gain access through one machine, you would sort of want to move around to multiple other machines, servers across the network in a company to extract as much data and get as much as you want. And for collection, it would actually be the act of collecting that data, information, whatever you will find relevant. Command and control would be so communicating with systems under control within a victim's network. So this could be executing file transfers between them, intercepting traffic, making it look like someone else or something else was happening. And then for exfiltration, taking everything out, obviously. And then for the impact, so techniques the adversaries use to compromise integrity by manipulating a business operation process. So this is sort of the aftermath, and like after everything has taken place, the company is usually doing damage control, that sort of thing. Want to take care of all of that after the fact. So what they do with the information, that sort of thing. And I guess let me go back to the PowerPoint. Hold on a second. Yeah. All right. So does anyone have any questions for me based on what I just went over, or if there's anything I didn't really explain very well? If you guys want me to touch on that again, I can kind of explain it a bit better. And then if that's not the case, I'll give it a minute for questions, that sort of thing. But I'll pass it off to Michael for the demo if no one else has any questions for me. All right, Michael, I think you're good. So I'll let you take over from here. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Michael, you good? I can't hear you, Michael.
Yeah, it shows
I-
you're speaking, but not. We
Yeah.
can't hear anything.
Michael, would you break?
Okay. Yeah, he'll fix that in a second.
Gotcha.
Got it. All right, sounds good. So if anyone, this is the time if you guys want to ask me any questions about the framework, and I can provide you a bit more resources, information about that if you guys need it.
Okay, hopefully that's better. Is everything good?
Yeah, now we can hear you good.
Okay. And let me get my screen up. Okay. So everything I'm going to show you can just be done on your Windows system. So first, I'm going to actually talk about what is threat hunting, because threat hunting can mean multiple different things to different people. So what we're going to go over is 3 different things. So one is hunting for threats existing in your organization. So looking for anything unusual that's on your system, monitoring your networks, looking for running processes to see that nothing's running that shouldn't be. The second being hunting for threats proactively. So looking online, getting familiar with new threats, playing with different threats, like reading news feeds. And then the third one is actually setting up a trap and waiting for something to come to you. So that's going to be like honeypots and the whole process of like analyzing of what you get from that. So for category 1 of looking in your organization, if you guys have Windows, you can follow along here. So you could press Control-Shift-Escape, and then you'll open up Task Manager. Or you could open it up a lot of different ways. You could right click the taskbar and press Task Manager, Control-Alt-Delete and press Task Manager. And then it might look something like this. So it'll just, like the basic view of Task Manager is just going to show you your basic processes that are running. Those are usually the windows you see that are open right here. But you could press more details right here. And then it'll give you a more advanced view of everything in your system. So what you could do is you could get familiar with what's running. So you get to see if anything running that shouldn't be. If something looks suspicious, like xyz124.exe or something, then you're going to want to try to find where that is, what it's doing. So you could do that by, you could click on any one of these. So I'm just going to, let's say we don't know what this service host is. So I'm going to right click on it. And then if you press go to details, you'll see kind of more about the process. You get the process ID, you get that is running, the memory allocated to it. And then you could also right click and press properties. And then you kind of get an overview of where it is. So this is from the SVC host exe, and it's in Windows System 32. And so how do we know that this is actually what it says it is? Like, how do we know it's not some virus named SVC host exe pretending to be from Windows? What you could do is you could right click it and press open file location. So you see here that this is where it's stored. And I'm going to have everyone open up PowerShell. So in the top bar right here, just type in PowerShell, and then you'll get a nice PowerShell window. And then there's a command I'm going to put in the chat. Let's see. Let me type it. Okay. And there we go. Why didn't the chat pop? There we go. Okay. So you're going to want to run this command. And what this command does is it gets the hash of the file. So the hash is like the unique identifier of the file. And it basically is how you could check the integrity of the file. So only this file will have this hash. And you could copy this hash. So Control C, and you could actually look it up. So even if I just paste it into Google, I could see different websites that analyze this hash. So I'm gonna go on virus total. The last time it was scanned was 6 hours ago. None of the engines detected the file. So what virus total is just, it's a lot of different antiviruses grouped together, and virus total has them all scan this one file and sees what antivirus finds what about it. And you could also search on virus total. Let's say you didn't find it online for some reason. There's a search option. Let me go to the main page. Okay, so you can press search, and then you could put in a URL, IP address, domain, or file hash. So if I paste this file hash and press enter, you get the same page. And if this had no entry on virus total, then that means it's an uncommon file, and something like SVC host should have a hash stored on virus total, because it's on every Windows system. So it's going to be uploaded a lot and scanned a lot, and you'll be able to find a matching hash. And if it's something else, like let's say this was completely different, I don't think there. I think you could go. Yeah. Okay, I need an account. Whatever. If you have an account, you could actually see related files. Or actually, okay. So it says here are related files that are trying to that are kind of the same thing, or trying to be the same thing. So this one is named svc host.exe. But if you check it, 59 engines detected this file as malware, and I'm going to assume that this isn't the real SVC host. So if you're greeted with this page instead of a nice full green page, then you might want to check into that and see what's going on. So another thing in Task Manager is you could check startup. So you could see the apps that are enabled on startup. And as you see here, it's categories, so like the name, the publisher, and the status, and the startup impact. So if something doesn't look right, like say Spotify right here, it was by some random name that you don't recognize, then it's probably not going to be the real Spotify. And you could right click, and then you could search online. You could find the file location. So Spotify, I can't open the file location for this one, but for any other one, you could right click and press open file location and see where it's stored, and trying to and do the same process that we did here with virus total to kind of investigate. And you could kind of see, so you could label, or you could sort by startup impact. If this is also very useful for, like, I guess, optimizing your system. You don't want things starting up that you don't need. So this is for my keyboard, and I guess technically I don't need it, but if I was looking for like faster boot times and when I restart my computer, then I disable it, and I could play around with that. So it's just a pretty useful thing to know in general. One other thing you could do is check regedit. So I'm gonna do the Windows key and R. I'm gonna hold those two at the same time. And then in this box, I'm gonna type regedit. And you might want to play around with this like in a virtual machine if you do go to change any files, because if you don't know what you're doing, you could change a value or mess something up, and you'll have a hard time fixing it. So try not to change anything that you don't know what you're doing. It's always nice to get a Windows virtual machine up and then just change values and mess around to see what you could do, because this is really useful to know. You could compare your regedit files with or your registry files with a plain Windows, a fresh Windows installation. So if you have a virtual machine that's just Windows, you could see what's different about it and try to see, compare the two to see if anything looks suspicious. So I'm not, I guess I could have everyone navigate here. So I'm gonna paste it in the chat. If you navigate here and paste it in this top bar, then you'll see the startup applications in your startup folder for your current user. There's also run too. And then they have their value set, and you're if you're gonna wanna mess with this, you're gonna wanna research more about how the registry deals with these files, and just play around with it, because that's the best thing you could do with cybersecurity. Just play around with stuff and break stuff.
It is noted that playing around with your registry keys can mess with a lot of stuff on your Windows. So it's probably smart to try to like a Windows VM and do it.
Yeah, because you can like completely brick your computer if you mess up something.
Yeah. So that's why I
do
said
what Michael says in the virtual machine.
Get a virtual machine, because you will have a bad day if you mess anything up.
And if you do, there are registry cleaning tools out there that'll go in and kind of fix some stuff if you break it. But best practice, and just to reduce headaches, is just use a virtual machine.
Yeah. Okay, we could close that so you don't break anything, and so I don't break anything. And I'm gonna have everyone go back to the MITRE attack framework website. So I'll link it in the chat again. Okay, and once you're here, so Andrew kind of went over what each the individual steps, and what I wanted to show for threat hunting. What you could also do is there's this view on the attack navigator option, and then I'm gonna also want everyone to open up the attack groups that MITRE has. So I'm gonna paste that in the chat. And what this is just, it's MITRE categorizing different attacks in different groups, and because they have similarities. Like if you look at APT12, you could see APT12 is a threat group that has been attributed to China, has targeted a variety of victims, so media outlets, high-tech companies, and multiple governments. and then it just tells you more about this specific group and what's related to it. So that's going to help us in our attack navigator. So what you could do is you could create these layers. So if I go to create new layer and press enterprise, you get to see all these, all the attacks that you were able to see right here, but you could categorize them into groups now. So if I were to go to multi-select and then select APT12, press select, and then I'm gonna color code them. So I'm gonna go to colors, I'm gonna press show, I'm gonna create a value of 1, 2, 3. So low value 1, high value 3. So 1's gonna be red, 2 is gonna be yellow, and 3 is gonna be green. Or actually, I'm just gonna do 2 layers. So just do 1 to 2, just for simplicity. But you can combine as many layers as you want. So then after that, you're gonna wanna go to scoring and then score everything here with a 1, which I'm not sure I selected APT. Is that APT 12? Let me select one that has. Hold on, let me deselect this. I'll remove the scoring. Okay. Whatever. Okay, so yeah, you'll have to get used to using it. Like, but I'm just gonna go ahead and select multiple things to show like as a demonstration. So let's say you're focused on these, right? So gather victim network, develop capabilities. You can select whatever you want, and then just score all these a 1. So they get color coded, and then go ahead and create a new layer. Same thing. You're gonna want to go to color setup, show values of 1 to 2. And then you're gonna want to select the threat groups. So I'm just gonna select APT 16. I'm gonna select this one, this one, this one, this one, that one, just whatever. And then set the scoring to 1 again. And then now you open up a new layer, and then this is going to combine the layers. So create layers from other layers. And then for domain, I'm just going to choose the first one. And then the score expression, I'm just going to do A plus B. So A is the first layer, B is the second layer. So the third layer is going to be, so the overlapping attacks are going to have a score of 2, and that's going to make it the color green. So as you see here, you could just kind of play around with it, and it's kind of like an Excel sheet. So you could also, you see that develop capabilities has a score of 2, so it's the only overlapping one in my attack groups that I selected. You could also download the layer and then share it. You could export to Excel, like if you wanted to do like a presentation or something, and it's just really useful to actually see what you're working with and kind of work with it visually. And then the last thing, setting up a trap and waiting for someone to come with you. So honeypots. Now I wanted everyone, what I wanted to do is I wanted everyone to have a honeypot set up, but the honeypot I was going to use isn't available anymore. They took it down. I don't know why. So I'm just going to show it real fast and then talk about it. So I'm going to go to my virtual machine, and here's my honeypot that I have running. It's just nothing special. It has these ports open, And then there's nothing's happening actually because it's not connected to the internet. This is just all local. So you could see the ports and you could see what tries to access it. So I could tell this honeypot to open up, I don't know, 500 ports and monitor them all. I could see the time, the remote IP, the local IP, the port protocol. You can view the details of it. There's not going to be anything interesting here because, like I said, this isn't facing the internet. No one's going to interact with it, and I'm not interacting with it. But this is what you could do. So we're actually going to try to get Honeypot set up in the CFC and kind of gather our own data. So it's just kind of cool. So we could show people more about honeypots and what they do, and then it's a great learning experience to actually review the information and see. But we'll have to see how that goes with Maryville, and because we have to get it approved by them. Oh, thanks, Stephanie. I know there's so much with cybersecurity. It's just all interesting, and you could do what you want with it. Okay, and I'm going to show everyone an example of what we're trying to replicate. So you can just search on the internet live threat map, and then we could look at the one by FireEye. You could choose whatever you want, and what these are is they're active threats that FireEye is collecting. Now, these may be honeypots, they may be just, I'm actually not sure how FireEye collects their data. Do you know, Hunter? Because I'm not as familiar with this threat map as I know he is, but it just shows different attacks. And we used to have this playing in the CFC, but then the CFC video wall broke, and
now I think you just have to go to the computer and set it up, but
okay. And it's just kind of cool to watch the attacks, and there's statistics. So then here's the top 5 reported industries, and different attack maps will give you different things. Here, let's look at another one. So this one by Checkpoint.
Valentine's Day.
Yeah, it's Valentine's Day thing. So these are sending Cupid sending love to all these servers, specifically in Nepal, Bolivia. Yeah, so
heartbeat attacks.
Look, yeah, this is showing the attacks as hearts, and like it's giving information about them. It's going at a really fast rate. You could slow that down if you want. So you could see this one, web login form password brute force attack. And then these are the top targeted industries. These are the malware types. So botnet is one, phishing, and then mobile. And then this is updated and live. So you could see just kind of like what's going on in the world and gather information like that. And that's all I have to show you guys. Sorry, I couldn't get the honeypot working, but stay tuned for the honeypot CFC project because I think that'll be pretty cool. Okay, any questions? Anything I need to review?
Yeah, I think this was really good. Hope everybody learned a lot. We'll put this on YouTube as soon as possible. I know we have to get the login for it, but But yeah, thanks for coming. Hope you learned something. Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Michael, for setting this up and teaching everybody something today. We'll see everybody next week. I think next week is OS hardening. So we'll learn about hardening your OS against hackers and compromise. So yeah.